Take Peter Strzok's and Lisa Page's text messages, throw in a little bit of behind-the-scenes congressional testimony, and what do you get? Ever heard of verbatim theater? And what's the real definition of controversial theater in this day and age? This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Jan Jekielek. Today we sit down with Phelim McAleer, who wrote FBI Lovebirds, UnderCovers, a verbatim play 100% composed of real text messages and statements from Strzok and Page and their inquisitors. Cain and Kristy Swanson starred in its world premiere in Washington, D.C. on June 13th. Phelim is also the producer and co-writer, along with his wife Anne McElhinney, of Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer. Well, Phelim McAleer, welcome to American Thought Leaders.
Thank you, thank you.
It's really great to have you here.
I'm neither American nor have I many thoughts, but I'll do my best.
So, I had Anne, your co-conspirator, so to speak, some months ago to talk about Gosnell, which is also, you're the producer and co-writer with her. We learned some fantastic things. It's an unbelievable film, and this is, I guess, your next venture.
Yes, yes.
So tell me a little bit, maybe I'll just outline. You actually took the text messages of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and congressional testimony behind closed doors of both of them and put that into a verbatim theater play. Tell me the genesis of this idea.
Well, verbatim is better known in the United Kingdom as verbatim theatre. It's kind of a thing. That's, there was the Bloody Sunday inquiry, which was a long judicial inquiry into a massacre in Northern Ireland in the 70s. And somebody took all those eyewitnesses' accounts and boiled them down into a play. So, that's been going on in the UK for a while. So I brought it to America. I did Ferguson like that. I took the grand jury testimony. I did Ferguson like that. I took the grand jury testimony, boiled it down into a play. And when I heard about these text messages, which, were personal and political.
Right.
They told a love story and a hate story, because the hatred of Trump comes true. I thought, that sounds like a drama. So let's put it on stage.
Fascinating. I saw it last night, and it was, I've just never seen this kind of theater before. And can you just tell me, it was literally every word in the whole play from actual testimony or text messages? Every
single word. And in fact, some of it, we could have been clearer. Some of it, people were talking about, the Crossfire Hurricane investigation or whatever. We could have said the Russia investigation, but I was very careful. I wanted, even where they were unclear, I wanted to keep a little bit of unclearness there. But every word from that play last night that you saw, every word that you saw and heard was from the actual, it was verbatim, 100%. It was either texted by Lisa Page and Peter Strzok,
right,
or it was part of their congressional testimony, their closed-door congressional testimony. I did not add any drama. I did not add any paragraphs. I did not add any context or distortion. It's all their own words. As Cain said, playing Peter Strzok as written by Peter Strzok.
Right. So you had Kristy Swanson playing Lisa Page and Cain playing Strzok. It's quite the cast you found, and I guess you made friends during the Gosnell filming with Dean.
Yes. I mean, you've got, well, as I say, we had young Superman and Buffy the Vampire Slayer on our sides. Who could lose? So Gosnell, Dean played Detective Jim Wood in Gosnell, and I just shot him an email when I was doing it. I just shot him an email and I said, what do you think of this? And he almost joined up before he saw the script, right?
Wow.
And he said it sounded like a great idea. I sent him the script, and he was in. And then he's friends with Kristy. Kristy actually came to the Gosnell premiere. I sort of knew her through that, but I don't think I'd never met her. I don't think I'd ever spoken to her. He sent it to Kristy, and Kristy jumped in as well.
So you had your premiere last night, quite a packed amphitheater. I heard there was some intrigue around the venue. You actually had to find a new venue at one point. What exactly happened?
You know, censorship is a powerful force in America these days. So we were coming to DC with this play, and we hired the Mead Theatre, which is part of the Studio Theatre complex. Mm-hmm. And we hired the Studio Theatre, had a contract with them. Everything was good. Once we announced the play, and once the media started paying attention to it, I think the Studio Theatre got a lot of, upset darlings from the theatre world who said, "Darling, you can't do this. This is appalling, and this is, even though it's the truth." Actually that's the problem, especially because it's the truth. They hated it. So just before they all went up to New York to award themselves lots of Tonys for being brave, just before they did that, they did the least brave thing on the planet. Then they canceled. They just wrote and said, "We're cancelling the contract," with no reason.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. They cited security reasons, right, because it was of one tweet. So they cancelled the contract because they do not like the truth. They call themselves braves. They give themselves awards for being brave, but they are political cowards. They're artistic cowards, and they're artistic pygmies as well, actually, because they only want to put on shows and plays that their friends like, that their little bubble likes. Right. To me, that's not being brave at all.
So the avant-garde theater isn't really avant-garde anymore.
If I'm speaking to people, I say avant-garde. You're probably not French. Let me translate it to you. Avant-garde, roughly translated from the French, means anti-American. And that's
here. Effectively here.
Yes.
Right? That's
so when you hear somebody say I'm avant-garde, what they're really saying is I hate America. I hate Trump. It's not avant-garde. They're not out front. They're leading from behind. They're with the mob. Avant-garde. Actually, avant-garde is I'm with the mob. That's the translation now. But I'd rather not be with the mob.
So you don't think you think this is actually a decision made internally, or is it something where just simply there was this outcry, an effective kind of heckler's veto that was played out?
No, it was an internal thing. I mean, It wasn't. There's no heckler's veto in the sense there was one tweet that they claimed, but no, it was an internal cowardice. Actually, not cowardice, internal hatred of the truth.
And how long did it take? I mean, how much time did you have to find this new venue?
10 days.
10 days. And you ended up in the Ronald Reagan building.
Yes.
Curiously.
In the amphitheater. Yeah.
Right. And it was just that simple. You went in, found it.
No. That is another story. No, these things are never simple, and it was very, very difficult. And it wasn't until really last Friday that I was sure that we had the venue.
Wow. You're really cutting it close.
Yeah, but I was determined. Because the Studio Theatre, the Mead Theatre, censored this play, I was determined it was going to go on in DC regardless, even if we had to perform it on the steps of the Capitol building. I don't care we've performed it. I would have performed it on the pavement outside the Studio Theatre, right?
Right.
It was happening. Sorry, sidewalk. I know what you Americans say.
Yes.
I would have performed it on the sidewalk outside the Studio Theatre.
So tell me a little bit about some of the scenes. Is there some scene in particular in the play that struck you particularly? One thing that I noticed was that the emojis were being read out, and actually I thought that was particularly powerful. Winky face, Dean Cain with his winky face, and so forth.
You never know what's going to be powerful when it's performed on a stage. To be honest, I wrote it, and I didn't see half of what they saw in it and what they brought to it. It's just totally different from what it looks like on the page. So I thought,
Well, what about last night? What did you remark on?
People were laughing at things that I thought were not funny, but they were when you heard them spoken. The absurdity of it. It's the greatest absurd comedy in America at the minute. It's, as somebody said, it's Saturday Night. It's a long Saturday Night Live sketch. Only it's funny.
That's funny. No, it actually struck me as being Saturday Night Live once upon a time.
Yeah.
Kind of in the old days or something like that. I thought of that.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder everyone says Saturday Night Live used to be funny, but I would say if you go back 20 years ago, people were saying Saturday Night Live used to be funny. You know, yes, I think it's what a golden age of Saturday Night Live could have been. You know, could be. I mean, the fun. I mean, I'm not a comedian. Actually, Dean's a good comic actor.
People were laughing throughout. From what I could tell.
Throughout.
It's quite remarkable, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. You know, it was just, and then, you know, I got nervous. You know, there was about 5 minutes where nobody laughing. I was getting nervous, you know, and of course, like, for most people, that would be like almost, people need a break. You know, I think people need a break.
Right.
But for most playwrights, that would be, you know, 5 minutes without a laugh. They would think that's a victory. But for me, people were laughing so much that I felt bad when they didn't laugh.
So some people might say that some of these could have been taken out of context to make Strzok and Page look bad. How do you deal with that sort of thing? Did you try to make things seem more inflammatory or less? What's your personal take on this?
No, well, I mean, I wrote this play to give context to the Russia investigation.
Right.
Right? So there was a 500-page Mueller report, and everyone's very excited about it, whatever it was. And I wanted people to see what was going on behind closed doors at the beginning of the Russia investigation. So this is giving people context.
Okay.
You know, so when they were opening the Russia investigation, Peter Strzok was texting Lisa Page saying, don't worry. She was saying, it looks like Trump. Do you think Trump's going to get elected? And he goes, maybe it's time to open the insurance policy. And that was the Russia investigation. You know, so, and also people who say, they're taken out of context and they're edited down. These are journalists who take the Mueller report and write a 700-word article about it. Okay. Right? So they edit a 50,000-word report to 700 words, and they accuse me of editing something, you know, as if that's a crime. Editing. Every journalist edits every day of their life. Of this interview will be edited. You know,
definitely.
So I hope so. Can you make me look good? So this interview, every interview is edited. So I'm in an hour-long interview with a journalist who accuses me of editing. He says, "You edited these." And I'm going, "You're going to edit this?" So like, that just doesn't stand scrutiny that they're edited or taken out of context.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at is your personal philosophy. I mean, some people might want to make something more inflammatory. Some people might want to just present things in an unvarnished way. Well, what are you trying to do?
By the way, I think this is the purest form of journalism because there's no authorial voice. So that's 700. So some journalist takes the Mueller report of tens of thousands of words, reduces it to if he's lucky, 1,000-word article. But there's lots of journalistic comment in that article, right? There's actually very few quotes from the Mueller report. You know, a lot of it's journalistic interpretation. That play last night that you saw cut out the middleman. There's no, it's directly from Peter Strzok's phone to the audience. I'm not getting in the way and commenting on it.
Right. So, I mean, effectively, you're trying to present, but it is cut down. It isn't all the text. It isn't all the testimony. I mean, how many hours was there?
I think there was 55,000 texts. We didn't get them all, but they sent a lot of texts. They were young and in love, or old and in love.
Absolutely. You know? No, and it's something that actually comes through, which is very interesting. On one hand, there's this. I mean, this is the sense I got from the play. On one hand, there's this kind of, well, of course, animus towards candidate Trump, President Trump, so forth, right? Yes. And on the other hand, there's a lot of insecurity, right? It's very interesting. I mean, it's a very intimate, these text messages present an intimate portrait. And actually, I something that I got from there, which, I mean, I hope others did too, is the sincerity of this conversation. You know, these people were sincerely approaching this, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I took. Is that right?
Of course. I mean, as was said, like, when are you at your most honest? Right? It's when you're texting someone, texting your mistress, and you believe these will be, not only will they'll remain private between you. So that's when you're at your most honest, and that's when your insecurities come out. And I mean, I in some respects, the political part of that play was easy to write and bring together. The personal bit was more difficult because Strzok is a very interesting character. He's got this, it's hard to know whether he's insecure or playing insecure, right? Because all the times he does.
I see, for Lisa's benefit.
For Lisa's benefit.
Right, I see.
Because she's definitely insecure and she's telling him, and she's got, it's a wonderful portrait of modern American womanhood, actually. She's got kids, a very high pressure job. She's talking about going for a promotion that's an unbelievable promotion, but she doesn't want it because she wants to spend time with her family. It's a wonderful examination of all the pressures of a working mother.
Right.
And she feels like she's an imposter at work, that she's not actually qualified for a job, even though she's highly qualified. And he's trying to reassure her. And then I think he throws in some insecurities to make her feel better. But I don't think, but I'd be very interested in what you think. I don't think he's as insecure as he pretends. I think there's an arrogance coming through there. But what did you get out of it?
Well, no, to me, frankly, when I know some of the content, some of our columnists and some of our journalists have been covering this issue extensively, and I'm shocked and stunned at the things that I had learned. It's very hard to be sympathetic. Okay, let's put it that way to these folks when you know what they were doing, but actually, to me, I gained sympathy to them through watching the play because. It put a human element. The thing that also struck me and actually disturbed me was that it seems like, again, from the play, that they very sincerely believed they needed to do whatever it took to stop the president from becoming president or staying president.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, this is a big question mark, right? And it leaves a big question mark in one's mind.
Yeah, no, these were the anguished texts of people who believed their country was in danger. Absolutely. Because of candidate Trump. This was the politicization of the FBI, right?
Right.
That's
what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it is. And this is like reading J. Edgar Hoover's texts. It's very similar to what J. Edgar Hoover did to Martin Luther King.
Okay, how so?
He investigated. He believed King was a communist and a threat to the American way, right? Just like they believe, not that Trump's a communist. They believe, and it comes out in their text that Trump is an existential danger to America, and they're quite clear with that. And how can we stop that? J. Edgar Hoover believed the same about Martin Luther King, and had King investigated and surveilled, and liberals are all, and Democrats are all exasperated with Hoover, and they all think this was terrible and awful and terrible and awful. But these people, were doing exactly the same in 2016 with candidate Trump.
Right.
I think you could take some of those texts and put them in a memo from J. Edgar Hoover to a subordinate, and you wouldn't recognize the difference if you just changed the names. That's how, they were talking about opening an insurance policy to stop candidate Trump. They were talking about, Watergate, and hopefully, the day after they opened the the Mueller report, Strzok wrote to Page, hopefully he'll resign, and hopefully there'll be impeachment. And it's like, as the congressman said to him, I think you had your mind made up before you started the investigation, and that is not the way the FBI is supposed to work.
Well. No, exactly. Which also kind of begs the question, how can people, the thing that struck me, okay,
yes,
is really made me think is, this progressivist ideology that's, become more prevalent in American society, it's almost believes that everything is politicized, and that, taking the political position is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Wherever you are, whether you're in the FBI or, in government or whatnot. So,
last night you were there was a big crowd, but I spoke to several members of the audience. There were several retired and serving members of the FBI there, right? And they're furious with Strzok and Page and Andy McCabe and James Comey for politicizing the FBI and destroying the reputation of the FBI. I mean, the FBI had a bad reputation in the 60s and 70s, but it had regained. It was one of the last respected organizations in America. The media is not respected, Congress is not respected.
CIA is not respected. Right.
And now these people went in there and politicized the FBI. And I mean, they openly talked about trying to thwart an American democratic election. You know, Lisa Page wrote to Strzok and saying, Trump's not going to get elected, is he? And Strzok wrote back and says, no, we'll stop it. Like, and this is not some guy, you know, walking around houses knocking on doors of the FBI. He's the head of espionage at the FBI. He was the head of the Russia desk. He was under Andy McCabe, who's the deputy director. Right. She was the general counsel to Andy McCabe, the deputy director. These are serious people who both he initiated and led the Russia investigation. He was in charge of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, and he sends a text saying, we're going to stop Trump getting elected. This is bad, and I think American people don't know really what's in these text messages, and that's why I had to play last night. But if you looked around, there were 5 or 6 cameras filming it, so we're going to film it and put it online so that American people can see it.
Fantastic. So how did you pick the director, Richard Coleman?
Well, I did a previous play which was based, it wasn't fully verbatim, it was called the $18 billion Prize. It was in San Francisco, and the producer who made all that happen logistically last night had recommended Richard.
Oh, okay.
And then he did a great job there for no budget. And so he was the guy that we thought he's great when you have no money and no set.
Speaking of no budget, this is entirely crowdfunded, isn't it? And Indiegogo, is that right?
I'm glad you mentioned the crowdfunding there. Yes, it's entirely crowdfunded. So, I mean, people have been very generous. It really seems to have struck a nerve. And the studio theatre, when we were censored and banned from the studio theatre, we went to the Ronald Reagan Amphitheatre, which was 3 times the cost.
Oh, wow.
So we had a certain target of 95,000 for the whole production and the filming and all that, and now, unfortunately, we have to go over that. So if anyone's out there, although it looks like we've reached the target on FBILovebirds.com, we haven't. We actually need more than that. But I think you would recommend people to help push it out, wouldn't you?
Well, you just did, you know.
Yeah. Crowdfunding is a great way of getting past the gatekeepers, and I think more people, more conservatives, more libertarians, more people not in the mainstream need to stop complaining and get out and crowdfund.
Remarkably successful, in fact, with crowdfunding. This isn't your first rodeo, right?
No, I mean, we raised 2.3 million for Gosnell. We raised 200,000 for a Frack Nation documentary. I did Ferguson, raised 100,000 there, and you know, so you need the right play, the right product, and you know. By the way, conservatives, you need to produce a quality product also, right? You know,
obviously.
Yes.
Critically.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, you know, one thing I say about Gosnell, it stands with any other Hollywood movie, I believe, and that play last night, I think. You could see that having a run on Broadway or a classy off-Broadway.
Well, so what are the prospects of that?
Well, if the world was fair, I wouldn't be able to do this interview because I'd be fielding phone calls from Broadway producers because, you know, that was a one-off staged reading last night. The Guardian was there, the Washington Post was there, the Times was there. You know, it's had unbelievable Deadline Hollywood Reporter. It's had unbelievable publicity for a staged reading, a one-night staged reading in unfashionable Washington D.C. So you would think a Broadway producer would be on the phone saying, you know, with a cigar going, let's bring this even off Broadway to a big theatre there. No, crickets. So if the world was fair, this would be in New York, or this would have a run in DC. I mean, I think we could fill DC for a couple of months here.
You would think the controversy itself would be, you know, good publicity, right?
the artistic world they don't understand what controversy is. They believe controversy is something that all their friends believe in, but shouted in a loud voice. So shouting F Trump, or shouting I hate Trump, or shouting something like that, they believe that's controversial. It's not. If they were to get up and at one of these awards dinners and say, we should all give Trump a chance, or maybe we're being harsh on Trump, they would understand the meaning of controversial then. Unfortunately, we have illiterate artistic classes now who don't understand the meaning of the word controversy.
Is this kind of intellectual orthodoxy that must be made? That's what you're talking
Yes.
about, is that right?
Yeah, so the new controversy is, as you say, intellectual orthodoxy. They have no idea what diversity means, none. And it's ruthless how they enforce this intellectual orthodoxy, and that's why Broadway producers are not phoning, saying, getting into a bidding war for this highly reviewed and controversial play.
Okay. Well, like I said, I can imagine lots of people, if last night was any indication, which I think it is, I mean, the thing is basically there was laughter throughout. I thought it was fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about your, co-conspirator, co-collaborator, Anne McElhinney.
I call her my co-colluder.
Co-colluder,
Yes.
Okay.
So
how do you guys work together? Yeah.
I think you need to ask other people how we work together, people who are in the room. Surprisingly, there are sometimes raised voices, given that there's two Irish people and one of them is Anne McElhinney. So most of the raised voices are from me, by the way. So we try and, it depends on every project.
You have a creative sparring, I guess,
Yes,
that kind of thing.
yes.
And then you come up with clearly something of note.
Yeah, so Anne and our partner Magda, as I say, I come into the room and go, we got to do this, and they laugh. And I go, we got to do this, and they laugh. I come up with all these ideas, and they laugh. And about once every 20 ideas, they go, okay. And then we take it from there, but they mostly laugh at my ideas. So there is a lot of humour in the work I do, but it's mostly in the room with Anne and Magda when they're laughing at my ideas.
I remember she was talking a little bit about this in our interview, a few months ago. We'll link that to the bottom of this one so that people can check that out. Oh, that's great.
Anne's my wife, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, and there's a lot of intellectual sparring.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Gosnell. I heard that it's actually coming to Netflix, which means that there was quite a reception ultimately, even though there was, I guess, a lot of these types of forces that you've been discussing that seem to be against the film because of its subject matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there was a lot of opposition to it, and it's not so much the subject matter. It's that it tells the truth about a subject that a lot of people don't like the truth being told about. I mean, we rely heavily on the court transcripts.
Right.
Heavily. So, and as I said last night, a courtroom is a wonderful place for a conservative because people are forced to tell the truth. There's no political slogans. There's no emotionalism. It's all rational. They have to defend everything with evidence, or the judge tells them that that's excluded, or the lawyer tells them that's excluded. So it really boils down sometimes to facts. And that's a great place, and that's why I think the Gosnell movie had such opposition, because of facts.
Well, it had opposition, but then it actually had a pretty strong reception.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, it had an amazing reception, and it had, people, I know one person drove 8 hours to see it. It opened in 800 theatres. It was very, very successful, massive publicity and press. And really, it's kept the name Gosnell in the public mind for years now, and it's funny, abortion is ramping up as an issue now.
Right, of course.
People are still referencing Gosnell, and that's good that he's part of the debate.
I remember something from Gosnell. There was this concept of comfort care, which was referenced in the film, and this is something that I think Ralph Northam was talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah, so
subsequently. It's just interesting. It was a little bit almost prophetic that this would become.
yeah, so one of the most dramatic parts, I think, of the Gosnell movie is the good abortion doctor. The prosecution brought in a good abortion doctor, a proper abortion doctor, to show how bad Gosnell's behaviour was.
Right.
And she was asked about what happens if a baby is born alive. And eventually she said we would give it comfort care. And the lawyer said, what is that? And we put the child aside, keep it warm, eventually it will pass. Right? Comfort care.
And that's the transcript.
That's the transcript. And that's why Ralph Northam was so relaxed when he talked about the baby being put aside and kept comfortable in that interview, because he was actually talking about standard medical practice. Ralph Northam is a doctor. Everyone in the medical profession knows this happens. Everyone in the abortion industry knows this happens. But he let the cat out of the bag. And it's very interesting, when his KKK scandal erupted, the first organization to call for his resignation was not NAACP or something like that. It was Planned Parenthood.
Interesting.
Even though they gave $3 million to his re-election campaign.
Fascinating.
Because they realized they did not want that interview of his on a loop going forward. They wanted him discredited, so they threw him under the bus because he spoke the truth, and you can't do that, it seems, in the abortion debate.
Okay, so back to Lovebirds.
Yes.
Before we have to finish up in a moment. But so what are the plans? What's next?
Well, you saw the cameras last night. It's going to be filmed and released online. It's edited, released online. That's going to give it a whole new lease of life. People are going to, Americans are going to get access to this and see it in its full glory. And, I'd like to take it to Broadway. I'd like to I'd like as many Americans to see this as possible. So watch out for it coming out online. That's going to be the next big thing. I think that's going to open the eyes of a lot of people. And, it's time that the truth was told on that. The American, it was very important. Actually, that was one thing Dean Cain said was, I hope you're going to film this and put it online, because, and I think that he was sort of saying it's kind of conditional. I'll do it as long as it's filmed and put online, because he wants everyone to see that. We all want everyone to see the truth. And so we're going to do that. And, who knows what will come out of that too, what interest that might spark, and we could go on a tour or whatever. So watch this space.
Well, we'll definitely make sure to link it to the video when it does become available. Phelim McAleer, you're raising some very important issues and putting them into the cultural zeitgeist here. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Jan. It's a pleasure.